Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Red Road Paranormal. My name is Christina Bloom. I am a psychic, medium, podcaster, obviously, an author, a member of the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, and of Alaskan Native descent. And I'm going to hand it over now to my co-host, Bobby Resnick Calkins.
Hey everybody, hope everyone's having a good evening tonight. I'm Resnick, member of the Stockbridge Muncie Tribe, Band of Mohicans. Also, I'm a cryptid investigator, a paranormal investigator with the Wisconsin-based team, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Tonight we have our new friend, Mr. Al Cooley, with us from the podcast Ghosts in the Valley. Take it away, Al. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I started this podcast, Ghost in the Valley, like 6 years ago, and I wanted to get all type of paranormal stories on my show, and I've had all types of people on my show, and I'm also currently writing. I just finished a book. It's my adventures growing up in a haunted house as a 12-year-old to about 16, and the adventures that were led outside of that house. So I've always had an interest in the paranormal. So, and especially since I was 12 years old, I've seen my first ghost, But yeah, it's I'm also a musician and had my own video company for production company for about 15 years. And I did a documentary in my area, northeastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania. And it was based on true ghost stories, hence Ghost in the Valley. So I got my podcast name off my documentary. I just stole my documentary name and did the podcast,
Nice.
I like that. I also drive through that area several times a year. So
Northeastern Ohio, you come up by Cleveland and
yeah, into upstate New York. So it's, like through just that little bit of Pennsylvania, but right through Ohio.
And as you probably know, there's, it doesn't matter where you go, there's hauntings everywhere.
Everywhere. Yes.
Yep.
And I prefer the little towns that people don't go to. I prefer the places that, not your typical Mansfield Manors or your Lizzie Borden's or I like the places
I agree.
that little Chippewa, Kansas. Some places they never heard of this little house.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't like I have no interest in ever going to somewhere like was it Waverly Hills?
Waverly Hills.
Yeah, I have no interest in going there. Everybody's already done that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as an investigator, I personally prefer the littler places, the unknown ones. But on the other hand, I want to go into some of these bigger places to see if I get a different response and different reaction from what everyone else has. Because just because 100 people have been at one location doesn't mean they all get the exact same experience and the exact same data from that location. Spirit's going to talk to who they want to, interact with who they want to, and how they want to, by their choice, not by ours.
Exactly. So, if you go into an investigation, that spirit's going to pick and choose who they want to relate to. I've been on one where the girl in the back of the room wasn't even part of a paranormal team, but the spirit wanted to talk to her because the spirit was Hispanic. Nobody else in the room could speak, Spanish.
Spanish.
So,
yeah.
Right. So it connected with her,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll have a bunch of these other, I call amateur paranormal teams that go out there and they are trying to provoke the spirit, or they're using their voice recorders and AVPs, and they're not even talking to the spirit. I know that he's talking to a trucker because the guy behind me says, go to another frequency because we're talking to a trucker right now. And so they did get the people behind me got something, but this other team kept going on with the same one. I heard him say that was another frequency. And I thought that was kind of weird, and I seen like 3 teams in that house that day that were stumbling over each other, and it was just a fiasco. I personally believe, my own beliefs is, I like to go into a house. If you feel the spirit and you're kind of pushed or touched, to me means more than having somebody on the recorder. That's just my own personal. And I had said that before, I'm not dogging other people's paranormal equipment because there's a lot of good stuff out there. I'm just my personal experience. I just love I can tell that there's something in that house. I don't know. I'm not don't claim to be an empath or a psychic medium, and I writing this my book that's coming out. It didn't hit me till like a couple of years ago that I think you had told me before that being protected, you felt like something was protecting you. You got a guardian spirit or guardian angel around you. And I felt that when I never realized that I was writing this book. One part of this book where I'm standing behind a garage door and this guy's attacking us. I mean, because there was a fight that broke out with my uncle and a few other people, and he followed us back to our bass player's house, and he got out of his car and I had seen him come up with a shotgun. So we had shut the garage door. When he blew the hole in the garage door, the hole, I mean, those old garage doors only like, this thin, and with the glass, it blew the hole and the glass out. And then when he shot this, like dumbasses, we're standing there because we're still holding our equipment like, oh my God, he just shot at us, and then he shoots again. So it wasn't until the next morning we went into the garage that we found out that, yourself, you've got buckshot, how many pellet holes from left to right all through that garage.
Yep.
Not one of us was hit once. We're standing there holding the speaker cabinets polluted with holes. Things from us right to left is polluted with holes, and we're not hit. I mean,
you're a guardian angel with that
right? So
thing.
so you're going from just that experience. I can add like maybe 15 others where it finally hit me. I got a guardian angel or something protecting me.
Yep.
And so it's stuff like that. Like when I went to a house last year, I never seen a shadow. I never seen a shadow figure till last year. So that was new to me, And so when I seen it go behind the house I was in, that he told me at the same time the shadow figure's behind me, And I had I didn't actually go there to do a investigation. I went there to do an interview of the man because he wanted to tell me about his house, but he wanted me to come to the house. So the only thing I had with me was my cell phone. So when we were going up the stairs, my cell phone cracked in 4 spots. And I just felt a heavy pressure, you got energy. And I told him I didn't feel right, So we went, and it was like 67 degrees in the one room, but 90 something in the other room. We just walked outside to do the interview, and that house was extremely haunted, and it was built like in the 1700s. And they had moved the house up on the hill. So they moved it with a team of horses on logs. He knew that. Now my thinking was, after listening to his story and all he had to say, my thinking is he lowered the house on Indian burial grounds because he was digging his garden a couple years ago, and he dug up bones and Indian artifacts, and that's why. And then he would say at night they would see something like a form of a skinwalker running down the wood line of the property at night. So that's why I'm just kind of leaning towards maybe it was built on burial grounds,
Right.
I don't know, but I do know the house was it's still active to this day. He's still there and his family.
If I was to take a stab at it, I'd think that if it was built on a burial ground or a burial mound, that when he moved the house there and started digging into the land, they felt very disrespected. And that's why some of the activity may have vamped up. A lot of times, if you honor them and show them the respect that they want, they won't mess with you. You can coincide with each other, but when they're feeling disrespected and dishonored and all that, that's when they start getting a little upset, and you see some of this.
Oh yeah, because they've been there a whole lot longer than you have.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
sometimes we forget about the land itself. You know, that comment was made to be a while back was, you know, where we focus on the person, but we don't focus on the land,
Yep.
on
Right.
the ground that place was built on, or where these people came from, and how long has the land been there? Forever. So,
Right.
uh,
My feeling is that there's probably, I mean, at some point over the history of the existence of planet Earth, somebody has either died or been buried or something on every square inch of the planet. I mean,
mhm.
Yeah.
it's been around a long time. There's been a lot
Yep.
of generations of people and a lot of iterations of people. And, so anywhere can be haunted.
I went to my first. I don't know if you guys ever witnessed a green burial. You know,
I've never witnessed one. No.
uh, where you're just putting a body within a shroud. You know, a cotton shroud, or sometimes with nothing. You just putting a ground in a pine box or something that can give back to the earth. You
Hmm.
know, and
Yep.
I went there a couple years ago for it was near here, and I can't remember the name of the little town I went to, but it was a green burial cemetery. And I did the episode for Earth Day, and I learned a lot that day on you know, getting like say a traditional burial with formaldehyde and you know all that, and then compared to saving the land. I mean, giving your body back to the earth,
Yep.
and trees are growing around that, and that places there's no really. If you want a headstone, it has to be like biodegradable, or uh, you're giving back to the land. I mean, I don't know how else to
Hmm.
put it, you know, and so you're not putting people on top of people. Or I've been to churches where you know how they said the difference between a cemetery was be a public city-wide burial spot, where like a graveyard would be usually off of property of a personal house or a church. And
Hmm.
you know, what I found out was your prominent members got the best spots. If you're going to that church and you're giving them the most money, you know, or let's say your great aunt Martha was buried there, and someone's Joe Blow who helped build that church and donates buku money to that church every offering. He dies, they're going to put him in that spot. You know, I've seen where the two or three spots were one, you know, three bodies in one spot. So, and you wonder why the church is haunted, or a lot of churches are haunted.
Hmm.
You know,
Yep.
and
Churches, schools, hospitals, nursing homes.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're not free from being haunted because you're a
No,
church. You
Yeah.
know?
no.
No, it's the energy that's there. Not only do you have the spirits, what's the energy that you've brought into that location, and over the years it has soaked into that location. So some of your hauntings at some of these locations are residual,
Hmm.
where the more active ones are your intelligent hauntings, as they call it, where that's the spirit that's there for whatever reason, whether they felt comfortable there, or if they turned around and are feeling disrespected, they want their voice to be heard or their story to be told. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I've had guests on the show from New Zealand and Australia and all around the world. You know, and almost every state in the United States. And it just baffles me how, like, say, if you're talking about a haunted house, you know, and the activities going on, it's identical to any other place around the world.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've lived in a few.
absolutely.
Yeah, I've lived in a few haunted houses growing up, so you
I don't
know.
think I've ever lived in a house that wasn't haunted. The one I live in now is haunted. I mean, like, I think it's me. I don't know.
See, when I'm home in this house, there's never any activity. I have had activity, but that's because something was following me. But for the most part, any of the activity ever happens around my homes is when I'm gone. My girlfriend, or this time my wife, has had some stuff happen here. My kids have experienced stuff, but it's never when I'm around.
you believe like you could carry a spirit on with you. I mean, to another location.
No, I think well, I had one follow me home from an investigation once. That's one where I experienced some things. But I've gone to psychics and talked to them. I've gone to demonologists and priests, asked them. Same question is, why is it that I don't experience anything in my own home, but others that are in it do when I'm not there? And they pretty much all gave me the same answer of, because the spirit knows that you can cross them over and you can be a threat to them if they're negative. So therefore, they're not going to show themselves in your space, but once you're gone, they feel it's like the old phrase, the warden's away, the inmates will play.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's interesting because I also have the ability to cross them over. And I have in some cases if they've been troublesome or, scaring people or whatever. Um, but I know the spirit that's in my house now, and I don't necessarily want him to leave unless he wants to.
Right. You're coinciding with them,
Right.
coexisting,
And that's why I asked
which,
this. Yeah, that's why I asked a gentleman last year. I went into his house. It was haunted. Have you had investigators in here to try to move the spirits on? I mean, get rid of the spirits. And he said, no, he doesn't want them to leave. I mean, they've been here a lot longer than we have. So he is respectful of them being there. Now, there's more than one. There's like, I think there was 4 or 5. I can't remember. But he has the little girl that's there, so uh he would feel terrible, like, I don't know. And I know what he's talking about, because in the haunted house that we moved in when I was like 12, I was petrified. Naturally, I wanted them to go. I didn't want them there.
you know,
By the time we left this, I was 16. I was I was like, I heartbroken. It's really hard to explain. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
want to leave. Mainly the girl, I called her Alice, because she was just about the same age as me, maybe a little bit younger. And it was weird because I felt like I'm leaving something I shouldn't be leaving, And to this day, I go by that property. 50 some years later, and
Hmm.
the uh the house is no longer there. I mean, the house burned down in 2005. So, but I still feel something. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
When I pull up there, I still feel something. And I took my brother-in-law with me, and he's like, "Oh, let's get the hell out of here." I don't feel right. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So it's
Hmm.
yep,
you feel it.
Yeah.
And I always said going on a paranormal investigation is like, it's like fishing. Sometimes you catch something, sometimes you don't. You know.
Right. Right.
yeah,
I've been at investigations where, they've got the K2 thing going on, they've got all these other
Hmm.
toys out, and the spirit's standing there just looking at him like, I don't want to talk to you. You
Right.
yeah.
can't make them.
Right.
You can't make them talk,
Right. You
you
can't.
know?
You
So,
can't make them talk, can't make them interact with the equipment.
nope.
One of the things that I'm known for saying is, stupid human tricks, because we're asking them to do the same things over and over again to validate things. And I was out on an investigation one day, and we were asking, for validation from some questions we asked to make sure it wasn't just a one-off.
Hmm.
And that's where that came into my head so loud and clearly that it's pretty much stuck with me ever since.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's why I didn't want to really go with a traditional publisher when I was doing this book. I wanted to do self-publishing. Number one, it's really hard to get a traditional publisher to publish your book.
Right.
And I've already had like 3 rejections. I started, then I got to thinking, wait a minute, do I really want them changing my stories? Because
yeah,
they're not made up. I mean, they're unbelievable, but they're true. You know,
Well, still get
I,
an editor though. You don't want to put out an
oh,
unedited book.
I've got it's being edited right now. Right, you're
Okay.
exactly 100%.
Yeah.
Because what my sister-in-law told me, she's editing my book. She's a English professor. I
Mhm.
says, she asked me, did you fall asleep during your grammar literature classes? I says, because I'm going back to because if I'm going back to when I was 12 years old, that's 57 years ago. So I'm there. So is it past tense, present tense? you know.
And
So I'm
then you
trying
mix
to
them all up together.
right. So I'm trying to talk
Yes.
present tense in the past tense form, you know. So it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just I've written songs, and I've got poetry books. I got I don't know how many songs I have published, and I know the copywriting, I know the registration, I know all that. But you know, writing a book is tough. I mean, uh the
Yeah.
grammar and phrases and word
Yeah.
count, and you know,
My
but
college education is in English and literature. And yeah, I still like my editor's like, you sure you were awake during these classes? Because I'm like, well, maybe, but I probably wasn't awake when I was writing half of it. So,
yeah,
there's that too.
I done said what I had to say.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Right.
yeah, yeah. So
That's when I was in college. That's I handed in the paperwork, and the teacher goes, "You write like how you talk. You need to kind of work on that."
Yeah.
You know, it's with the improper grammar and everything else. But you know what? I'm me. If my voice is going to
Yeah.
come through them pages, I'm going to write how I think and how I put things out there, so it's natural.
Most people do actually write the way that they speak.
and you have to
Most
watch
people do.
and
Yeah.
when you have to watch in the editing, you want to be literally correct. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if it's like interviewing somebody from prison,
Hmm.
they're not gonna say, physiologically this or that. They're gonna say, "Motherfucker, that's how they're gonna."
Yep.
Exactly.
Are you gonna try to
Exactly.
make him look like a college professor?
Well, no, of
You know,
course not.
so
Of
like
course
the
not.
one girl in my book, I call her Seven in my book. She had a mouth that would flow you know, she couldn't use a sentence without a foul word. I mean, that's just who she was.
Right.
So, and I was peppering these words in there, and then I had one of the editors said, "You might want to cut back on that because if you're targeting your 12-year-old to 20-some audience." I'm saying, well, that's not who she was, though. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
know, so
It is difficult because I've also edited books, and it is difficult as an editor to make it a marketable product. And I hate to put it that way, but that's what you have to do. But also keep the author's voice.
right, so
It's a delicate
you
balance.
can put it in there in a
Hmm.
subtle way,
Hmm.
like F dot dot dot, or
Hmm.
you know what they're saying, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, hers was everything. So uh, so that was hard, and my uncle was the same way. He was probably spent more time in prison than he did walking outside of prison. So there's so much, and it took me so long to write. I started the book like 5 years ago. So because now I'm thinking, my sister said because we grew up in the house together, you know, did you remember this part? And I was like, shoot, I forgot about that. So I went back and had to add the chapter in for that.
Hmm.
And I think that from it was a very eventful 4 years. I mean, not just in that house, but you guys, I don't know how old you are, but back in the Kent State shootings in 1970, uh, me and my two buddies, wanted to go to Kent State and protest, of the Vietnam War. Not just the Vietnam War, but the adding the four kids that were killed there on campus. And so we were protesting that the murders that happened on the campus. Well, true story, we jumped on a train instead of going to Kent, Ohio, which is like 30 miles from my house. We went to Kent, but Kent, New York.
That's quite a ways difference.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we're on this train, and the one kid on the train, his dad worked for the train yard at the time, freight yard. So he had the what do you call that? The documents where the train was going. He knew we were going to Kent. So we just had to find a boxcar that had us we could squeeze in there. And so we were like, wait a minute, we should be there by now. It's like a half hour went by, and uh, trains picking up speed. Back then, trains could go like 60, 70 mile an hour. And we were going like 70 mile an hour through Pennsylvania and all these cornfields and cow fields. And like, wait a minute. And like 6 hours
Oops.
later, 6 hours later, we're in New York.
Yeah.
Well, the thing of it is, this guy that greeted us, I won't tell the whole book, but the guy that greeted us in New York in a train yard, old box, was a black man, and he said his name was Boxcar Billy Baxter. So I still remember that. So long story short, once we got to the, and they came and they got us and took us to the depot, and we were trying to tell him, this guy back there, are you hungry? Because it's going to take 6 hours for your parents to get here to pick you up, and blah, blah, blah. And we were told, no, Boxcar helped us out, They kept, you keep talking about Boxcar Baxter. And so when the secretary from in the office came and she showed me a picture of Box, I said, yeah, that's him. That's him. Well, he died like 35 years ago.
Okay, I just got goosebumps. I
So
saw it coming and I have
it
goosebumps.
Yeah.
wasn't the fact that I just seen him,
Right.
but my friend seen him and the other kid seen him. So it's all three of us, and all of our stories were the same. And so the only difference is I never heard a story where a ghost ages. Have you?
No.
No.
So, if you go in the same place to investigate, it's going to be the same spirit. It's going to be the same age, same time. But this case, the ghost we seen was an older Billy Boxcar. The picture she showed us was like of a younger, and this was the picture she showed us was shortly before he was blown up in the train yard, like 30 years ago. So I'm like, something didn't add up here. Either that's Boxcar who's hiding out here, who actually caused that explosion, but that just was passed on the rug because we were just three lying
Kids.
teenagers. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that always bothered me.
But the
And
thing that I have
Well,
discovered with the work that I do with the other side is that spirits can present themselves looking whatever age they want to.
so it
Just
could have been
most of them
Boxcar.
don't. It could have been.
Yeah,
Most just don't choose to present older. Most of them choose to present at the age that they felt best.
that
yeah.
could have been it, huh?
And you know what? Could have been because you guys are young that he wanted to present older in order to kind of get you guys to listen or to follow what he was trying to teach you at that
Or
moment.
trust him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just one story. So there's so many where
Hmm.
we were actually protected, I think, going through everything we went through, three young kids, naturally that time they're going to say, are you part of any affiliated radical groups or gang related, or do you love your country? Because we were protesting the war, protesting the killing of those four kids. So
Hmm.
you're automatically labeled as communist or not loving your country, and that was nothing like that at all. All we were three young boys that had protest signs for the killing of those four individuals, and we're hundreds of miles away from home, that we had to go back. That whole weekend was a very, always call it the weekend from hell, because it was from Friday to Sunday. It was in the book. It's just unbelievable, but it happened. So I'm going back to the library and I'm checking, because what happened, during that weekend was it's just so much stuff happened. So I was looking up the facts so I
Hmm.
can put in the later books that I found the facts where it's in the paper where we were shot up at that house at the garage.
Hmm.
And it's there.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I never told my mother, you're as a teenager, you don't tell your mom everything you're doing. So she didn't know I was spending the night at my friend's house. She knew I spent the night because our friend just died. So we were going to the funeral. We're going to his house, a party. So she didn't know about us being shot at. I never told her. Then the next day we went to a rock concert. It was near our area. I didn't tell her I went to the concert where we stuck our friend in the trunk of the car where he almost died of heat exhaustion because we forgot about him at the concert.
Jesus.
So, all this stuff's happening, and I didn't know where to begin with my mom when the guy knocked on my front door. The guy had his garage door. The man that owned the house, our bass player's father, they came home from camping, and what the hell is this? My garage door was blown apart, and we never told him. We just like renegade kids, And I told my wife, I said, I really don't know how I survived my teenage years without being killed. I mean, and so much stuff was so unbelievable, but it happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. Maybe that's why it took me so long to write the book. It's because it is unbelievable.
Yeah, my brother and I have often talked about writing a book about our teenage years. And he's a couple years younger than I am, but we decided if we ever do, we're going to call it Shit Nobody Believes.
You guys really probably should write a book on your investigations on what you've experienced.
Oh, that's in the works for me. I've got a few
Yeah.
books in the works, so that's one of them.
Especially for
Yeah.
Bobby too, for having a Native American. I mean, I'm sure you were passed down through generations of stories, folklore, that some that maybe you even came across yourself or plan on coming across yourself. Uh,
Yeah, I certainly did not have that passed down in my family because I'm the only person in my family who's ever embraced the American Native part, except for my son who's no longer with us. He embraced it too, but we were really the only two. Nobody else has. So there was no stories passed down really. So
yeah,
it
because
was
sometimes the
different.
stories are so important,
Mm-hmm.
from our ancestors. Or I've had a couple guests on my own show, about past lives, how past lives matter,
Right.
so your heritage matters,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
where you come from and their stories, your mom and dad's stories, your grandfather's stories, his father's stories, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And probably they're not good stories, but they should be heard,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
most
actually is a
definitely.
book in my family about my great great grandfather and doing mission work in the Alaskan territories. Guess where the Alaskan came from in my heritage? Um, but it's written in Swedish and none of us can read it. So there we go.
Right. My wife's Italian, but you would never know she's Italian. So both her parents were Italian, born in Italy. And, it's like I could swear my mother-in-law's albino, which they're both gone now, but she was light skinned, blonde hair, where my father-in-law was dark skinned, dark hair. And they would always argue in the house, like, he spoke proper Italian, beautiful Italian. She would speak what he called ghetto Italian. So it wasn't proper. It was like everything but they understood each other, but it's just like two different dialects,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I just love some of their stories. And, even Italy, I mean, Italy's pounded with ghost stories and hauntings. And
Oh
I mean, I
yeah.
get so many stories that from the Vatican is pounded with. Uh,
That has got to be one of the most haunted places on earth.
oh,
I'm
yeah,
convinced of it. I'm
yeah.
I
convinced of it.
I would love to go there just to experience the energy of that
Me
location.
too.
You
Yeah, I was going to
know,
get to that. Energy. It's the energy
Hmm.
from the spirits.
Yeah.
The and you was talking about Bobby, spiritualism. You know, it's a spirit. It's a energy for that spirit. The spirit's not going to me. It's not going to be there unless there's some type of energy. There has to be energy.
Hmm.
Uh,
well,
and that's why your EVPs and ghost box and everything else that they have, laser grids. I mean, there's some type of energy there that's causing that,
everything is energy. It's just
Right.
different forms.
or dowsing
Just
rods.
like just like we are. We're all
Hmm.
energy. The
Yep.
only difference is when we pass on, our soul, which is energy, leaves the body, and this energy here, the physical energy, breaks back down.
Yeah.
So everything and anything is energy in one shape or another. The energy cannot be destroyed, just transformed.
Right. Can't be created either.
Right,
Yeah.
Right?
right.
Yep.
So it's in 50 years, I guess. Because thinking back, I probably never believed in spirits or ghosts until we drove up that driveway. And the first thing I see is we drive up that driveway. It's a 12-year-old boy looking out that window was the car windows, pouring down rain. There's an image of a girl, in the top window. Now I'm the only one that's seen it. So that was the first time I seen her, and the only time I seen her was 4 years later when we were moving out. Now there's been a bunch of instances that happen from point A to point Z,
Mm-hmm.
but actually seeing her physically, seeing her, I mean, the last night was just profound, because it was almost like it's like a hologram, if you think back on it, so clear, and not a word was spoken. She never said it, and I'm sitting there with my covers pulled up like to hear, like I'm looking right at her, and it was like her weight, and she's just like faded out into the background, like, and that was it,
It sounds like
and
she came to say goodbye.
I think so, and it was never
Yeah.
really, and I can say it was never really violent with us. I think I was more helped in that house than attacked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm uh but I've had my uncle that I told you was a badass. He was attacked. My other uncle was attacked. Physically attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Uh but it wasn't until after we moved out, which would be book 2, was that was when it was really, really violent, because I knew the people that lived there that bought, that moved in. It was a rental house. So I knew the people that moved into the house. So it was very violent, because he asked me, was it violent when you lived there? I says, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. I can't really say it, not to me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or my sister or my brother, but it was with other people. But when we moved out, it was really extremely violent. And then what I hear, what I'm trying to do research on, is when the house burnt down, there was an individual in the house that perished in the fire. So I am, and it's hard to get the history of the house, because, once a house burns down, and it's
Yeah.
been through so many hands of buyers and renters, and it's almost like it's lost in time. It's like, I go to the auditor site, it's not there. I talk
Right.
to people, and finally I'm going to the library and just doing a research on, like, addresses, when the house is, that's how I'm finding out when the house is built. Uh, and I can find out who all lived in that house through the phone book, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
through the phone book. So I'm going through minor stages of using a fish at the library to find out the history of this house. I just want to know, how did somebody die in the house, and if there's any causes of the fire. I just know that somebody told me, hey, that, your house you grew up in is no longer there, burnt down. So I go by that area to this day, and it's a vacant field. They've never built anything in that spot, but I feel like like you say, like an energy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, a lot of, I mean, if the house is old enough, there probably wasn't even records. They just, paid cash to the next guy, and,
Yeah.
right,
or to the
right.
last guy who owned it. And, it could have transferred owners 3 or 4 times before there was ever a record for it. It could also be addresses change.
But
I found that too.
the weird thing is when we moved out, I remember standing in a driveway with my mother, because the landlord came back to give my mother back her security deposit, and the landlord asked my mother, uh, "Well, I'm sorry to see you guys move, because you guys are great tenants, but I'm surprised you're leaving." And my mother goes, uh, "We never thought the house was haunted." Talking about my mom and dad, but our kids say the house was haunted. And she was laughing about it, like we're
Mm-hmm.
crazy, because she never believed us. But or my dad. The landlord looked at my mother and said, "Oh, but it is. There's a 12-year-old girl that hung herself in that house many, many,
Oh,
many years
wow.
ago." Now I'm trying to get records of who was there. It's hard to do, man.
It is.
Yeah.
And and
That's something I found in doing research on buildings, is that sometimes the addresses change. They change the name of the street. They redo how they do the numbering. It doesn't always stay the same over the years.
And what I did, I'd never mentioned the address or the street in the book, even though I probably could have, and
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want. I found out even with cemeteries or certain investigations you're going, if you name a cemetery you just been to and about a haunting that was there, people found their way to that cemetery and
Yeah.
just desecrate that cemetery, writing on the tombstones or tipping them over. I don't want to do that but sometimes you can't help it. You have to, you know, say the location, but I never mentioned the house number, even though it's not there no more. The house number is not there anymore. The house
Right.
isn't there anymore. And, but just getting the history of the house is so tough. And, so I ended up going to City Hall. I went to one of the, people in administration at the City Hall and he's the one that told me that that whole area that we lived in, the whole West Reserve ground that we lived on by the river, by the Mahoning River, was all, we used to be like very highly saturated with Indian burial grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not, that was coming from him
What was the name of the
and
river?
Mahoning, Mahoning River.
I thought I'd heard of that there was a effigy mound in that area.
And that's what he
I
was
could be
saying.
wrong.
No, that's
Yeah.
all he was saying.
Okay.
And a lot of mounds in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And is there? I don't know. I wanted to go back in that area and maybe interview maybe a few of the neighbors that lived around there, if then he's still living. Because
Right.
so we're talking 50 years ago. So
Right.
the old folk aren't probably there, but who knows if it's not going to go away. That
Mm-hmm.
a lot of your buildings and landmarks are not. It won't go away. They're still there. I'm just curious, because uh, if that's true, then there was had to be other houses that were haunted.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure my grandfather, before there was any laws about it, built his house and he had a whole box still when he passed away. He still had this whole box of things that he dug up when he was digging the basement for his house, the arrowheads and some broken pieces of pottery and some beads that were made from clay. And, I mean, all of that stuff. As far as I know, no bones. At least I haven't heard of any bones. But, he still had that box of stuff that was in the ground when he dug his basement. That was in the 40s, 1940s, before there
Wow.
were laws about that. So,
Right.
yeah.
And the laws sometimes aren't for the better, but
Yeah.
uh I was thinking back on that area that my one neighbor across the street, she always had candles in her windows. And my one friend always said she was a witch, and years later I found out that she did dabble a little bit in the occult. Uh, I would love to know what she knew. It's just, and this was years ago. So yeah, I'm writing this book now, and I, I'm starting on the second one. Matter of fact, this wasn't even out yet. I'm starting on the second one, and I'm talking to friends of mine that lived in that house. That uh, it's astounding what they went through.
Yeah.
I mean, I never was seriously attacked. Matter of fact, I was saved in the cellar when I was falling off. I had a burnout light bulb. I couldn't reach the light bulb in the cellar. So, how you have these basements with the dirt floors. And it was, I was afraid to go downstairs, So he went downstairs. I'm sitting on one of these cinder blocks to change this light bulb. I lost my footing, so I'm falling backwards. But there was like a hand that come up behind my leg, and I felt me not falling back anymore, And I'm like, okay, thanks, Tommy. It was my mom's boyfriend. I said, thank you, Tommy. And I looked down, there's nobody there, you know. I mean, so what was it, something kept me from falling,
Mm-hmm.
and that was day one. That was all on day one. So uh and every time I mentioned it to my parents or my sister, we would be grounded, you know. We're talking nonsense, because they just didn't believe,
Or they
I mean,
didn't want to, or they were afraid to.
I just don't see how you don't see what I'm seeing, or like the one night there was, how you could hear like running in the attic, like footsteps going back and
Mhm.
forth. It's like somebody running across your attic. You know what that sounds like. If somebody's running across a apartment floor above you, you know what that sounds like.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that's what it sounds like, And I went in to tell my mom and dad there's something running upstairs. How could you not hear it? You're in the next room next to us, you know. And so the attic trap door was above their bed. So he got up on the bed and got this little, I don't know how he got up in the attic, but he took that door off. And when he did that, uh, this bat flew out of the attic and got in my mother's hair. And it was like, thinking back, it's kind of funny now, but
Thank
her,
you. People keep telling me bats don't go in hair. I
it,
disagree.
it,
It
it
happened to
went,
me too. Thank
my
you.
mother was all about her hair. So anything on if it was sacred was her hair. So when this bat went in her hair, I thought it was kind of comical because my dad's trying to beat this bat, but it's on my mom's.
Yeah, my brother was chasing me with a broom while I got a bat stuck in my hair. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So naturally, my running upstairs was that bat.
Mhm.
But I know the difference of a fluttering and a running sound.
Right.
Yep.
And so, I mean, there was so many instances in that house. I mean, I just can't remember them all, but it's just, says, let me, once I go, then nobody's going to, should know some of these stories, I mean, and when I had a past guest on the show, she's telling me some of her stories, and it's almost like, I'm not stealing your stories, dude. It's like, but your experiences is the same as mine,
Mhm.
you know? So, I mean, you've probably seen that too on your show,
Oh yeah.
is
Mhm.
a person's can tell almost the same story.
Yeah.
Like I heard a gentleman on your show last week talking about the UFO, and how it could be maybe terrestrial beings, or is Bigfoot related to the UFOs? I found, how many times I've heard that on my show, and I never believed that 5 years ago. I would never believe that, but now I do. That I
I
mean,
think it's entirely possible. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
I
Anything's
mean,
possible.
Mhm.
anything's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it
But
did happen or it is happening, and it's possible.
you look at the other hand though, if you're out in the woods and you see a UFO, the typical person is going to run the other way from it. What's saying the Sasquatch ain't doing the same thing?
Mhm.
That fight or flight.
Right.
So until we get a chance to sit down either with the little gray aliens or the little green ones like you got in the back there, or sit down and talk with a
Are you talking about my
Sasquatch.
friend here?
I love that little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to comment on your little green alien with the little hat on. That's sweet.
Yep. But until we get a chance to sit down and actually have a communication with these beings, we'll never really know whether if they are connected or if, it is a fight or flight type of situation for them.
Yeah. That
Right. I
that
mean,
is interesting. Remind me, well, actually, before I go any further, because I've been wanting to ask you this question, does your book have a title yet?
right now it's Lee Spencer's Ghost. I'm Lee Spencer.
Okay.
So in the book,
In
I
the
changed
book.
I changed everybody's names
Okay.
just to protect them, but
Protect the innocent. Yep.
protect the innocent, because if you got a job and we're friends, and I don't want to mention you if you the next thing they come after you and attack you, they can attack me. I don't care, but I don't want them attacking my friends and family members. And so I was suggested that by some other authors on my show to maybe not use the real names and real location. I did use a real location for like my high school, the pizza shop that was at the end of our store, at the end of our street, uh,
Yeah.
in our
Close
town,
enough, right?
in our town, a town
Yeah.
itself, the county. But yeah, there is a title. It's Lee Spencer's Ghost, and that could be subject changed up to the last minute,
Well,
that
yeah. Well, if it does, let me know because I want to promote you when your book comes out.
and I
So,
Yeah,
want
for
to,
real.
yeah,
I want a
Yeah.
copy.
And I
Me
definitely want
too.
you guys back on my show, going more in depth of what you were doing.
Hmm.
And yeah, the first original title was shoot, The Haunting of Alice,
Oh,
because
okay.
I named the ghost Alice.
Hmm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and as I'm writing the book, I'm thinking, wait a minute, because there's so much activity, and I think somehow, somewhere, it's like kind of paranormal connected to where that man in New York, uh, and also going to how our bass player that we hid in the trunk that's 100 degrees in that trunk for over an hour didn't die of heat exhaustion, you
Right.
know, and how we were shot at and we weren't hit by one buckshot.
Yeah.
I mean, how I was driving home just last year, and my dad's got Alzheimer's, and my father-in-law died of Alzheimer's, and my bio dad died of Alzheimer's. And my mother dies of a disease that only affects 1 in 10 million people. So I'm sitting at a stop sign, and I'm not really an emotional person. I'm not depressed. I can't figure out why people have psychotic breakdowns or whatever. That's just me. But at that stop sign, I'm that person. So everything that was adding up to me, I just lost it. I'm blaming God. I'm effing God. Uh, how the hell can you do this to me? Why can't I get a break? And then I'm going to the stop sign. I'm in a cornfield. I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere coming home because I live in a rural area. Coming home, and there's no cars. I'm coming through. I'm at a four-way stop sign, and this car on my peripheral vision coming from the left. It's going about. Oh, I know he's going 70 because the speedometer was stuck at 70 when he hit the ditch. When he didn't hit me, only thing I could think of at that time is I'm going to die, because he was coming straight at me. No way he's going to avoid me, and I'm just hoping my wife and everybody's fine. You know how they say your life goes in front of you.
Hmm.
That's what I witnessed. So I just closed my eyes and turned my wheel, and I heard a crunch, crunch, crunch. He had hit the stop sign on the opposite side of the street and went down like a 10-foot ditch. It just went down like maybe 50 yards. And he got out of his car and said he was sorry. He wasn't thinking, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm still here. So I'm
Caught your
thinking
break.
all these signs
Mhm.
are showing me how I've been protected.
Hmm.
Uh, it's my guardian angel, or but the weird thing is here I was cursing God, and now I'm praising God. Like before he hit me, oh dear God, help me, sweet Jesus. And I'm okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, would I have believed in guardian angels? Maybe, and I never even thought about it. And I know you being a psychic, I'm sure we all have to have somebody watching over us.
Oh, as stupid as
And,
humans are, yeah,
and
we've
being
all
as
got
being a
somebody.
spiritual person yourself,
Yeah.
Bobby, you know that
Yep.
something bigger is out there than us.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
And when you're talking about aliens and people, well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in, dude. Have you seen the universe? And
Uh-huh.
and
That's been my point since I was a little tiny kid. How many planets are there?
and
What
now they're
kind
Yep.
of
what
God puts one life on one of all of those planets? It
and
doesn't
what's
even
that
make sense.
telescope now that's going out there that can go into the other galaxies? And oh
Yep.
my, I mean, are you trying to tell me we're just a speck?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I always
And
thought it was ignorant of the humankind to think that we're the only things that the creator ever created.
Hmm.
There has to be other intelligent life forms out there.
Not only ignorant, but
Yeah.
arrogant. I mean, that's a really
Yeah.
arrogant thought that we are the only life in the universe. Come on. That
but
doesn't
Yeah.
even make
but there's
sense.
people out there that believe that, and that's
I
what's
know. I
uh
know.
Yep.
or there's still people out there believe the earth is flat.
Yeah.
So it's like
Still have that.
yeah.
I like that meme, it's like it has all the planets and then the Earth is a disc and it says, well, this is awkward.
Right.
I
Yeah,
love that.
talking about spirituality, and I don't like to go into religion on my show or politics, but uh, sometimes you can't help it because of your spirituality with, like say, going to the light. I remember my first guest on my show. I He was an atheist, and I was taken back a bit because I wasn't expecting his answers. So his thing was to me when I said, my question was, do you believe you can move a spirit on? And you have told me earlier, Christina, that you have moved spirits on, correct?
I have helped them, yes.
Right. You have helped them move on.
Hmm.
Move on to where?
To wherever they were going.
Right.
You
So,
know, I don't know where they're going.
right. So his thinking is this: you're not moving the spirit on to heaven. You're not moving the spirit on to hell because neither one exists.
Right.
You're not moving the spirit on, period. All you're doing is killing that spirit.
Hmm.
Now, I didn't know. I'm like, okay. You know, I mean, who am I to say that he's right or wrong?
Well,
I
exactly.
I can
Exactly.
Yeah.
disagree. I can disagree and say I don't, but I didn't. I said that's interesting. He
It's an
says, well,
interesting way to look at it.
but I'm not going to say you're wrong and I'm
Hmm.
right. Uh, Maybe I'm wrong. I have my beliefs, but he's an atheist, and everybody on his team is agnostic. So they're not going to believe you can move a spirit on.
Well, I have a brother who doesn't believe that there are spirits, even though he's seen them. So,
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he's like, when you're dead, you're dead. That's it. You just cease to exist. And I'm like, well, that doesn't even make sense. How does that make sense? But that's what he believes. And I don't argue with him. Where do I move them on to? First of all, I don't think I'm doing it, but I can certainly reach out and ask for help for them to go to wherever. Maybe they're going to somewhere else on Earth. Maybe they're going to another planet. Maybe I have no idea. But I do know that I have had a lot of experience in communicating with those who have crossed over. And no one can convince me that that's not real because of my own experience.
Correct. I mean, you go by what your gut feeling is, and
Hmm.
uh, sometimes, like you were saying about the Indian heritage, you're not taught completely the truth in the history books,
Right.
or they
Yep.
skip over a lot of areas in the history that should be taught.
Hmm.
Uh, so sometimes you're taught things that aren't true,
That's true.
and that's included.
We've been taught a lot of things that aren't true.
And that's all. What I was getting to is that's also in school. That's
Hmm.
in church. You
Hmm.
know, how can you be a hellion and you're gonna in the rest of your life you're gonna burn in hell because you believe in ghosts?
That doesn't make sense.
So I remember that as a kid growing
Hmm.
up in church, and had these hellfire preachers out there. If you believe in the ghost and spirits and all that evil crap, you're gonna go burn straight in hell. I was like, I'm just a kid. And I'm like, really? I mean,
See, for
Yeah.
for people that preach like that, I go, then why is there spirit communication in the Bible? Why does the spirit come down and talk to man in several different instances in the Bible if we're going to hell for that?
right. And why is there 58 uh exorcisms in the Bible?
Yeah.
Right.
So, and God himself said about the existence of a ghost.
Yep.
So, I mean, how could you, I mean, Jesus himself, so how can you
Hmm.
make these? I mean, and that's my thing is, you have to watch some of your leaders, your spiritual guidance people, you put your faith in, and that's not really, uh, maybe got to grab a cracker box. I don't know. But, uh, yeah, I mean, now that I'm older and I question more things, you don't question as a
Yeah,
child, question it growing up. You're
I
relying on
did.
your parent, you're relying on your parent or your teachers to tell you the truth.
I didn't. I knew I was being lied
So
to right from
you're
day one.
yeah,
I always knew it. I always knew I was being lied to. And my question, okay, is like, let's move this forward. And Christianity's been around for about 2,000 years.
Mhm.
Other religions have been around far longer. Why is that the one that we're using as a standard? It's practically new
Because
in the longer
it's,
thing, in the greater.
and then again, why is the Bible written by all men
Yep.
and women are to be obedient and submissive to the husband? And all the way up until the 1900s, a women had to get on their knees and pray to their husband for all the bad sins they did during the week or not being a good wife. I mean,
Yeah,
why
ask my
women,
husband how's that's working out.
right? But you know what I'm saying? That's just
Yeah,
the way I call it the white male supremacy in this country.
right.
To this day, men want to make laws on why women can't have an abortion. I mean, a woman's body. I mean, that's my personal opinion. But
Yep.
I believe everybody has the right to do what they want with their own body,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to an extent to where you're not going to hurt somebody else. But I
Right.
mean, then they'll say, well, that baby's somebody else. Uh, then are you going to take care of that baby because the baby was coming from the woman that was raped by her father or
Or the
uh,
woman who died
a
in
rapist
childbirth.
or child, or even here in Ohio, had to go across state lines to get an abortion
Mm-hmm.
that could have in far worse things that happen. But that's just that I can go off on a tangent. It's not that I don't
Yeah,
believe. I don't want to say I don't believe in the Bible. I'm just saying I don't believe everything that's written in the Bible.
right.
Because you
Yep.
got men that are writing the Bible. There are stories I definitely don't. I just do not like. That's just my own beliefs. But there's
And a
people
lot
out
of them
there
don't make sense either. I'm
don't
just
make
going to
sense.
toss that
Doesn't
out
make
there.
sense at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
That's why I don't
Yep.
get on religion because you got your Buddhism and Muslim and spiritual with the different Indian tribes have different beliefs, but basically comes down to
Well, there's paganism too, which is, much older than Christianity.
paganism, and you got the old Catholic Church is
Yep.
much older than the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
So the differences, and even in the religions, and how the church itself, the church is supposed to be the people. The people should be that church that's running that church. But the church itself is now becoming an organization
It's a
where
business.
it's a business. And what's going to happen if your pastor, your preacher, your priest, your bishop, anybody in that community don't bring the money in, those are gone.
Hmm.
If you
Yeah,
go,
they get fired. It's a
if you get
job.
right, if you have
Yep.
church doctrine, you can't marry gays or uh, anybody of that nature in your church, but you'll surely take their money in a collection basket.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
think
just
we might be going down a dangerous road
gotta
here, but
watch. Yeah, you
yeah.
gotta watch it
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
tell you
kind
something.
of.
That's why I don't talk politics. Yeah, I got off
Yeah.
on this tangent again, but uh, yeah,
It
yeah,
is
like I
interesting. It is interesting how people's own spiritual beliefs impact how they work with the spirit world.
Yep.
kind of like you guys do Reiki.
Yeah, I do.
I don't.
You don't do it. I went to my first session last year. I was skeptical. My sister, who's a Methodist preacher, pastor, talked me into going, and I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Hmm.
And then and I went there I had knee surgery done. I've had heart surgery, bypass, and total a lot of ailments. And I went there just feeling crappy and not really into it, you know. And then these I forget the name, I forget the Indian tribe that comes in, and they erected the teepee on her farm. It's called the White Barn Healing Tent. It's in Ravenna, Ohio. I'll give her a little plug. She brings in animals on her property that she like say if you're in the Amish community and you're gonna kill off the horses because they're too old to do anything for your business or your family. She brings these animals in and let them die peacefully on her property.
Hmm.
But then she also erects this teepee every spring, and then she takes it down in the fall, and she does her Reiki sessions in this teepee. And the Native Americans come in, they erect it, and they come in, they take it down. That's the first time I ever experienced anything like that. So when you walk in a teepee, you go from left to right to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Your shoes come off before you go in.
Yes.
And then you're given a, like, I don't know how, if you ever did yours, like we're given like we pick out a stone in the middle, and that's our stone. And you can, whatever you have bothering you, well, it could be psychological, could be a physical ailment that's bothering you. So you're praying for your ailment. So you pass your stone around. So you get that next person's stone, you're holding their troubles, so you're praying over or to the spirits over her stone. Then at the end, or it was firewood. That's what it was, a piece of wood. And then at the end, we walked out of the teepee, and then you throw your sticks into the fire they had going, with the incense and myrrh and tobacco. And I'll tell you what, I don't know. I don't believe in coincidences. So when I left there that day, I didn't have my knees didn't hurt at all. They were throbbing before I got there. So that's what I put on my wood when I passed it around, was my knees. And I felt so relaxed. And, they have the spiritual music playing in the background. And I just felt really at ease. It was my first time I went. I plan on going back again. And she takes donations, for it to keep, they care for these animals that come in, because it costs money,
Mm-hmm.
vet bills and food bills. And the White Barn Healing Tents in Ravenna, Ohio,
I'm going to write that down.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious if you guys, what your beliefs were on that, on the Reiki and spiritual.
See, I don't practice Reiki. I did years ago have a counselor do a Reiki session on me. And oddly enough, the next time I seen her, she told me she had night terrors the whole night afterwards. Never had that problem before, and would never do another session on me again. So I've never bothered going again to get one.
Okay, it could have been just a bad experience with a bad teacher.
Yeah.
Could have been. Yeah, I've been a Reiki master for over 20 years.
Yourself,
Yeah.
there's different, people do different ways, even in preaching.
Yep.
You got good preachers and bad preachers, like the one that told me I'm out in hell for believing ghosts,
Right.
Or, even Reiki, like you said, it all depends. I mean, I thought she didn't push it on you. She didn't make you believe. She didn't tell you you're going to be healed. You went with a to be relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And just to, even if for that 1 hour, if you were feeling depressed, like maybe at the verge of committing suicide, and if you can leave there and not commit suicide, or a little better, I think it's a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really great leaving there. That's my first time ever, 60 some years old, and 68 years old. And
the thing is, though, it's just shared energy.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's shared
that's
energy.
what you're talking about, spirituality. That's what it is.
Well, in Reiki.
And
Reiki
too.
is shared energy.
Energy,
That's
right?
all it is.
And you're the master of it, so
that's all it is. It's really just calling in. It's basically asking the universe to push energy through you to the other person. The thing is, it's the other person drawing the energy. So whoever's receiving the healing is drawing the energy.
So if you got everybody in a circle drawing that same energy for that same person's problem, then you're going to should have a good outcome.
Right. Because it's what do they call that? Like 2 people working on one person is like the power of 4 people, and 4 people is like, it's exponential. So when you have a lot of people focusing that energy, and it doesn't matter if you call it prayer or Reiki or healing or whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. So you have all those people focusing the same energy to that one person to help them with, in your case, your knees. It's exponential to how many people were there doing that. So to me, it makes sense. Energy heals energy, and we are made of energy. It's perfectly logical. And Reiki is actually not a spiritual belief anyway.
What would you say it is?
I would
Just
say
energy.
it's
That
just
you're,
energy. It's
yeah.
just energy. That's all it is. There is no spiritual or religious belief attached to Reiki at all.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's just energy.
Yeah, that's just
Mm.
wanted to get your opinion on that. You know, it's
Mhm.
another side of looking at it. You know.
Right. You can call it whatever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just positive energy. And it's
Right.
positive because of what we put into it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's like any spirit world. It's all energy. You know.
mhm,
So the spirits I seen or heard them. That house was energy. The ghost was energy.
mhm.
You know.
Your energy.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we've gone over, guys. Like 20
Yeah.
Oh
minutes
yeah.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I was
This
just
is
looking at the clock.
I know this has been a great conversation though. And Al, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your stories with us. I've been just kind of sitting here like almost on the edge of my seat, covered in
Well,
goosebumps for a lot of this.
I
So,
apologize for getting into the religious part. You know, 'cause I don't do that on my
No,
show,
no,
and I'm sorry for doing it on yours. But
yeah.
no, it's all
sometimes,
right.
sometimes I get a little fired up on some of these people with their
Yeah, I do
outlandish
too. I do too.
thoughts.
I
You know,
get it.
yeah,
Keep your judgments to yourself, people.
right.
Yeah,
Well, is
everyone's allowed
there
to have their own opinions.
absolutely, Al, was there any information that you wanted to give us about how people can contact you or how people can find your book when it's published? Do you want to hold off? Tell us about your
Well,
music.
it will be all my music I've taken off social media. I'm revamping my catalog.
Okay.
The book will be available on Amazon. Right now it's least business goes. And then if it changes, I will let you know. Maybe you
Okay.
can put a link to it or something.
Sounds good.
My podcast is Ghost in the Valley podcast. It's on Amazon, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. And I thank you for inviting me on your show. It was a pleasure talking to you. And wish you the best of luck for 2024.
Yeah, same with you. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.